طيب، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. فإنا نوينا التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير، ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. فاللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم وافتح علينا بمعرفة العلم وسهل أخلاقنا بالحلم واجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. آمين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. عايز عمران. الحمد لله رب العالمين. So you marked those worksheets with Mullah Khalil last week? No. Oh, دول اللي بنحو. Oh, subhanallah. So Muhammad, yeah, no, نحو takes place. There's an interesting book. Um, so we now buy additional examples. Okay. There's an interesting book if you're interested in Nahu, but it's not really about Nahu. It's called Nahul Qulub. Nahul Qulub. Nahu of arts. Nahul Qulub. So it's written by somebody by the name of Imam al-Qushayri. Um, and speaks about, he explains the Nahu, but he also explains some concepts in spirituality through Nahu. Very, very, very interesting book. There was a lady from Cambridge Muslim College who did some work on it. I don't think she translated it, but she had a few lectures on it. The Nahu of Arts, you can find the lectures online. It's a very interesting book. By Imam al-Qushayri. Imam al-Qushayri. Q-A-Y, no, Q-U-R-A-Y, Qushayri, R-I. Q-U-R-A-Y-R-I. Qushayri. طيب. Okay. طيب. Now let us go through these next examples. We get into حال today as well, inshallah. Is a possibility that منديل. طيب. So we're still busy with what do you call this? مفعول مطلق. مفعول مطلق. So here we have لا تعبدون إلا الله وبالوالدين إحسانا. How did you translate this? Do not worship none except Allah and بالوالدين, and with your parents إحسانا, be good. Right? So where is the مفعول مطلق? إحسان. Was this a strange one? Okay, so how this one works is that there is a sometimes this happens in the Quran, right? That you will have a مفعول مطلق for a فعل, a verb that is محذوف, that is omitted, right? So this is a textbook example of a مفعول مطلق wherein the verb, the fi'l, has been omitted. So were we to bring back the verb, the verse would have read لا تعبدون إلا الله وبالوالدين أحسن or أحسنوا إحسانا. So the word is أحسن يحسن. which means to be good. So Allah is commanding you, ahsinu ihsanan. Be good, a goodness. So that word ahsin there is understood, right? Why? Because we understand that the verb has been omitted, and in place only the masdar has been put there. It's an amr verb. Ahsinu ihsanan. Be good, a goodness. Right? And obviously, there would be benefits of doing this. One of the benefits is that oftentimes in relation to parents, you'll find that there is an extremely high expectation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in relation to parents. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا uff. Don't even say uff to them. No, so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the parents, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't even use the word ahsin, be good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes straight to the emphasis and says ihsanan. As if to say that the default with regards to your parents is that you must have an emphatic form of goodness that you extend towards them. And then on the other end, Allah tells you, لا تقل لهما uff. Don't even say to them a word, a sound, an expression that gives the slightest indication that you are displeased with them or that will displease them. Right? So if uff is not a possibility for you, then what is more than uff is even more inappropriate. So if you can't do that, then certainly you can't say no. Certainly you can't say I don't want to. Certainly you can't say why. If you can't say uff, then is what remains that you can do in relation to your parents. So that's on the side of what you cannot do. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks when Allah says, this is how you mustn't treat your parents. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about how you must treat your parents, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say, if'alu ihsanan, do good. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away the command and leaves the emphatic emphatic description of the command and says ihsan. Allah goes straight to the mubalagha, to the highest expression or intensity or degree in which the verb must be done. All right. Okay, but that's now not about this. This is for you to know that there is a fa'il, a fi'l that's hidden, that's mahdhuf, that has been omitted, and it's the word ahsinu. The next one, even I don't know this example. I looked at it. I don't know why they put this example in here. But let's see what you came up with. وَقَالُوا, and they said, اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا. Allah has taken a son. Subhanahu. Glory be to him. Right? So where's the maf'ūl muṭlaq? It can only be subhanahu. Right? And then where's the fi'l? Must be hidden. Isn't it so? So you might say فَسَبِّحْهُ subhanahu. So glorify him, his praises. Well, you might say that. Yeah, you might say that, yes. But then there are other discussions about subhana as well, as a standalone word, right? As the standalone word in expression. طيب. الذين آتيناهم الكتاب يتلونه حق تلاوته. How do you translate this? those we have given them the book, they recite it the truth of its recitation. What else do you have? What other translation do you have? As it should be recited. What else? Anyone have anything else? As it ought to be recited? No. حق تلاوته. طيب. Where? Yes. Number two would also be emphasis. No. Glorify him, his praises. Okay. So yeah, where's the مفعول مطلق? حق. Mhm. حق تلاوته. Right? حق تلاوته. Hmm? Because it's connected to the word tilawa. Right? So these are unconventional ones because it's connected to the word tilawa. So it would have otherwise read, it would have, oh, what happened to the video? It would have otherwise read that tilawatan, or you say tilawatan, uh, not haqiqiyatan, right? But it doesn't flow like in the language. So in order to convey the meaning that you want, you say haqqa tilawatihi, the right of its recitation, right? So the mudafun ilayh is taking the form of, or is taking the place of having just the word yatlunahu tilawatan. They recite it. But now this is what mubaynun lin. It wants to tell you the type of recitation. It says haqqa tilawati, a proper recitation. Can you see that? Make sense? Mm, no. So it's just the changing of the order where in a simple maf'ul mutlaq you would have the verb, you would have the masdar being repeated, and if there was another uh, um, if there was another sifa, then it would just be added. No, but over here, instead of having a conventional masdar being repeated and sifa being added, you have a mudafun ilay that contains the masdar in it, right? So the masdar is still being repeated. However, it's being repeated as a mudafun ilay, and the mudaf now becomes nasb. But the nasb is still indicating that something is a maf'ul mutlaq exists and something is being emphasized, right? And over here, it's not only emphasis, but it is mubaynun lin-naw'. So it wants to tell you more about the manner of the recitation. So he's saying, how does he recite it? حق تلاوته, a true recitation, right? طيب صبغة الله. So for this one, you have to go back to the verse. You have to go back to the verse. But if you had to guess, what would it be? Hmm? Color. Color or or die. Anyone got die? D-Y-E. Die. Not D-I-E, D-Y-E. The die of Allah. The shade of Allah, the die of Allah, the color of Allah, you can say. It means, it's a verse in Surah Baqarah. It means soak yourself, immerse yourself. So if you say asbagha, okay, sabagha, yasbaghu means to immerse. So as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, there's a verb that's not mentioned there. Isbighu sibaghat Allah. Dye yourself in the dye of Allah. No? So it's also telling you about manner. It's telling you about manner. It's telling you that how, like, what type of dyeing must you do? You must do a dyeing wherein you dye yourself for the color of Allah. And that means to immerse yourself in Allah's laws, His remembrance, and. Right? Yes. That that that's to describe. What do you call it? To provide a description of the verb. Mubainul lin now. Right? Did anyone go back to Surah Baqarah to check that out? Yes. 5. There's an interesting book that was written. It's called The Color of God. The Color of God. It was written by a Muslimah that she was in university. She used to be in niqab. And she came out of niqab. And she used to be in hijab. And she came out of hijab. And then she was a free lady now. And she's now a Muslimah. She's a free Muslim lady. This is her story of how she was freed from the shackles of a niqab and a hijab. Sibghat Allah, the dye of Allah, the color of God. She writes a life story about how challenges affected her, and how that eventually contributed to uh, coming out of niqab and feeling liberated. And she speaks about the type of books that she read, and a very interesting book. Uh, hmm? I forget. I forget. Hmm? I would buy the book because you know where I found the book? Generally, now if you go to bookstores, you find in the last about 4 years, 4 to 5 years locally, in my experience, that, and this was before 4 5 years ago, you never found a section in exclusive books or any other bookstore, indie bookstore or a commercial bookstore. You would never find sections therein of LGBTQ plus. You wouldn't find that, right? And feminism, and you wouldn't find a special section for that. So in the past 4 5 years, that's been, now every bookstore must have a section just for that type of literature. So this book is found over there. On matters on LGBTQ, feminism. That's because she's like a Muslim feminist, essentially, right? Because if you read the book, you will know that she's a feminist. When she speaks about Allah, she uses the word she. So she will say, if she speaks about God, she will say she, like that. No. She got the interesting tafsir of one verse in the Quran that she mentions over there. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about La malja'a min Allahi illa it comes in the Quran, and also there's a hadith about it. La malja'a wa la manja'a min Allahi illa ilayk. La malja'a min Allahi illa ilayk. Wa dhannu an la malja'a min Allahi illa ilayk. And they came to the knowledge that there is no refuge from Allah except with Allah. You know the verse? There is no safety from Allah except with Allah. No? And this is it's a very interesting idea, because you find this in psychology. like you find also child psychology in bullying, then you find that the child that is bullied is always very close to the bully. In fact, oftentimes when you find like complaints of bullying in a school, you find that the child that is being bullied, in terms of the complaints at home, they always found to be attached to this kid. Right? It's very common. So this la malja'a minhu illa ilay. There's no way to be safe from the bully except by taking refuge of being with the bully. No? So this is the example of Allah. The example of Allah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power is so great that there's no way for you to escape the power of Allah except that if you take refuge by Allah. The only way to escape the greatness that is Allah's taking hold of you is for you to submit to Allah so that Allah doesn't give you that punishment. Right? So she doesn't give this explanation. She has an interesting explanation. She says that, and I agreed with this point, that she said, not from the perspective of her being a feminist, but from the perspective of it was an interesting observation that she had. And she said what? That the government in Western societies have set themselves up as pseudo gods, as false gods. Why? Because the government has orchestrated itself in such a way that there's no way for you to escape from the law except by submitting to the law, whilst the law doesn't necessarily benefit you. So there's no escape from the system except in the system. Right? So this was a so this idea is when it exists outside of Allah, then it shows the tyranny of the so it shows that the police of that excuse us, the Zoom just cut by the internet. When it's found with besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's a sign of tyranny. So it's an interesting book, yeah, and if you want to read it. And she won't convince you about anything. You won't take your hijab off. You won't. Yeah. It's she's not so, but for me, I think it's, and why are we mentioning this point? Because of Sibghat Allah. Right? She called the book actually the color of God. And she throws on this verse in the book of verse. And it's important for us to, for me, I read the book about 1.5 years ago, the beginning of last year. And after reading it, I found it important because what you find is that, like, for example, myself, Wala Zakaria, some other of the teachers that are, we can be like preoccupied in like Western philosophy and things like that. And sometimes you think that the person's problem, like it exists on the level of the mind, that you can reason with him. But sometimes it's not that. Sometimes there are emotional causes for a person to feel distant from Islam. And you find that people that have these stories, that they don't actually have an issue with Islam. They have an issue with things that are connected to their Islam that affected them emotionally. Now, so she, for example, she had very hardline parents, as like immigrant parents in the UK, that are very like hardline about the way that they preach Islam to her. And so she develops a sentiment regarding the hijab and the niqab that is not necessarily home to Islam. but rather it is the enforcement and the manner of enforcement from a family that creates that emotional, like, sort of struggle with herself. And so she superimposes her personal experience onto Islam. And then she promotes it as this is how Islam views things. No? So it's very important also to consider the fact that people have emotional difficulties with their journeys in Islam. And we have to be sensitive to that. And sometimes when we're not sensitive to that, then we like push people away from Islam because we want to be hardline about this is what I learned at Mizan type of thing. Right? So it's very, very important too. Yes. No. Sometimes the madrasa teacher hit you, or you know, those, and it's really it's like that. Sometimes a person, the hif teacher, maybe that. So all these type of things, they have like psychological effects on the people. طيب صبغة الله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا يا أيها الذين يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته. Over here you have a similar one as حق تلاوته. So how do you translate it? Oh, you believe, fear Allah as it should be feared. Or you can also say a true fearing. So where's the maf'ul mutlaq? حق تقاته. And what type is it? One, two, or three? Two. Excellent. Two. Right? مبين للنوع. That's describing to you the manner that it must be done. ولا يظلمون فتيلا. ولا يظلمون فتيلا. How do you translate this? And they will not be wrong whatsoever. Any other translations more literal? Um, somebody said a hair what? A hair on the dates? Yeah. Yeah. So that's what it means. Even a single bit, a hair on the dates. Right. So that's fatila. So that's the maf'ul mutlaq. What type is it? What type is it? Number three. That's would be adad. That's not number. Number two. Right. That describes you how. You can also say number three from the perspective of not a single bit, but it's not really a number. It's more telling you about the manner, to not even to the least degree. It's describing to you how they will not be wrong. So, وَلَا يُظْلَمُونَ ظُلْمًا فَتِيلًا. So the word ظُلْمًا there is omitted. The same like ihsana, the word ظُلْمًا, it would have read وَلَا يُظْلَمُونَ ظُلْمًا فَتِيلًا. And they will not be wronged to the harm amounting to the seal on a date book. Right? So there's two words like this in the Quran that is used. The one word is fatila and the other word is naqira. So the fatila is that if you have a date, then you have the pup, and then on it is that there's a seal over it. It's like a thin. That's called fatila. Then you have naqira is another, to not to the least degree. It's on the date you have that line. The pup, it has the line. You know, the it's you can split the pup by that. So that's naqira. So that's another expression for not in the least, right? نقيضة. به يريد الشيطان أن يضلهم ضلالا بعيدا. Okay, this one should be easy. far astray. So ضلالا بعيدا. And shaitan, with it, shaitan wishes to lead them astray, far astray. Excellent. So over here it's simple because the word ضلالا is repeated from the word يضل. So what type is it? What do you say? Two. Excellent. حرصتم. It's actually ولو حرصتم. فلا تميلوا كل الميل. And over here, how do you translate this? How did you translate it? You just have to read your translation. If it's wrong, then we correct it. We will laugh at you, but it's fine. You desire, do not incline all the inclination. Someone else? Same? Same? No one have different. Completely. So, ولو حرصتم, even if you desire, فلا, so do not تميلوا, do not incline كل الميل, a complete inclination. Do not incline a complete inclination. That would be number 2 or 3. Right? 2 or 3. You could interpret it as number and saying a whole inclination, but if you wanted to, you could say it describes it, a complete inclination. وعد الله حقا. Forget about جميعا there. That's out of place. Right? That's out of place. وعد الله حقا. The promise of Allah is true. Anyone else got anything different? When you say the promise of Allah, truly. So, وعد الله وعدا حقا. The promise of Allah, a true promise. Right? I don't know. Let me check the verse. طيب, let's go to the next example in the meantime. فَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنِ افْتَرَى عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا. So who does who wrong than the one who invents a lie against Allah? Someone else? So who is more? So who is more wrong? Who is more unjust? Mimman, than the one who iftara, invents ala Allahi, upon Allah, kadiban, a lie. So this here is just a simple maf'ul mutlaq for emphasis. Who can tell me this one came in the rules? Read the rules over there. Read the footnote or number 3. Read the footnote number 3. Can you see it? Explain it. Someone who sees it. They have different root letters, but the same meaning. So how is this here? Inventing a lie. So iftara, it would have said iftara ala Allahi iftira'an. But this iftira ala Allahi kadiban. And kadib and iftira have the same meaning. Right? So it's here maf'ūl muṭlaq for emphasis, but it's using a different word with the same meaning. Like jalasa qa'datan. He sat a sitting. Excuse me? Yes. Who is more? Faman, so who? Azlamu. It's صيغة التفضيل. Azlamu, akbaru, right? Afdalu, all on the same scale. So who is more? Who has more dhulm? Who is more oppressive? Min than man, the one who iftara, invents a lie ala Allahi, upon Allah, kadiban. A lie. So that's for emphasis. Emphasis. No. طيب. طيب. So the next course for nasb that we have, nasb that we have is hal. And I think of all the nawasib, this is the one you're most familiar with, isn't it so? With hal. You've seen this before. So let us, I will let you read through these notes on hal and attempt the first set of examples, not the additional examples, just the primary ones. Then we'll discuss it in 3 weeks' time. Inshallah al-Fattah. In fact, yeah, just do that, inshallah. Right? No. Excuse me? Do the hal, yeah. We'll discuss it technically next week, inshallah. But for now, read over the notes and try to do the first examples. Yeah, I said that we'll do it in 3 weeks' time. Okay. Okay. Suffice for that, inshallah, then for today. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين.